What's up, guys? This is OmegaLiar, and today I'm bringing you a live audio commentary about tuning. It's not advanced tuning, this is tuning for beginners. And so basically, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take your regular car and I wanted to upgrade it all the way into the A class and then race it and see what I can get done. And I'll tell you sort of the what I stick to as I go along. So my test subject today is going to be the Ferrari F12 Testarossa, or 512 Testarossa. I'm not going to pick any colors or tunes. Let's get it in a nice blue, and I'll buy it, and let's get started. So there's a couple of things that you need to know when you're upgrading, and that's obviously, first of all, which parts to buy, followed by how to manage those parts.
This is your 1991 Ferrari 512 TR.
Okay, now let's just jump right in. So you really, there's a few things you're going to want to keep in mind, and the first of which is what are the general stats of cars in that class. So if you go to My Cars, and just as to take an example, let's say, you go to the A class, you see generally handling is between 5.3 to 5.7, generally speed is between 7.1 and 8.4, acceleration is generally around 8.5 to 9. Doesn't really get much higher than that. And I mean, launch is only so important, and braking is about 5.5 to 6. Apparently, my Corvette has a 6. So those are kind of general guidelines you want to stick to when you choose parts for upgrade. So the first thing is always first. You're gonna want to put racing tires. A lot of people feel that speed is really important, and a lot of people who don't know much better will make speed one of their top priorities. But in reality, most races are going to be won in the bend, so you're going to want to put racing tires. This is generally speaking. Some cars they can already handle well, but because you have those general guidelines you want to stick to, getting your handling is going to be very important. So I almost always will upgrade my tires. It will go at the expense of some acceleration when you do the bigger tires, but the handling is really very important. Excuse me. So next thing that I normally do, and that you can do, is I want to upgrade my transmission, because as it stands right now, I can't tune any part of it, and I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do it. And it's very simple. It's not, you don't have to know too much about it, but you're going to want to get the race transmission or just the sports transmission. In this case, I'm actually going to do sport for simplicity's sake. So, but there are more advanced tips that you can do with a race transmission. Next thing, I'm going to upgrade my brakes and springs. Now, brakes, even though the rankings themselves, they're only moderate differences, technically speaking. Any chance where you can get ahead of someone on a turn by braking later is going to be a chance you want to take. So, upgraded brakes are almost always a necessity. Now, upgraded springs, less a necessity, but something I personally enjoy a lot. I love being able to have my car low to the ground. That's just a personal thing. Generally speaking, you actually don't need them, unless you're going into the S class and maybe even to the R class, but I'm going to do it anyway, because it's fun. Now, here's an upgrade that you can choose. If you see, the Ferrari Testarossa weighs 3,600 pounds, and that's a lot. If I were to take off all the weight, it actually drops below 3,000 pounds. And the effect that that's going to have is dramatic. You can see the launch is much faster, the acceleration goes from a 7.5 to an 8.1. And that's obviously a huge benefit. And the handling, it says it only goes to 5.6, but a lighter car is much more responsive than a heavier car. It feels much less sluggish and gets around turns much quicker. So a weight reduction is going to be a great idea into making this car a competitive A class. Next thing I do, because I still have space, is I upgrade the clutch. Especially on older cars, shifting times are going to be pretty slow, and if you're not doing manual with clutch, that's actually going to have a pretty big impact. So you're going to want to be able to get a nice clutch, and that's the sports gearbox also helps with that. But anything you can do to reduce the shift time to help you with acceleration is going to be great. Now I just want to check out my stats before I decide to move into engine upgrades. And you can see my handling is at a 5.6 with 8.1 acceleration. So I'm not accelerating very quickly, but my handling stats are great. So now I actually want to decide whether or not I go for engine upgrades or if I go for aerodynamics and better handling. I can see that putting a splitter on front of my Ferrari isn't going to have a huge isn't going to make a huge difference, but I assume that this will be much more. And you see the speed drops, which is fine, because from a tuning aspect, it means that my top speed is going down. But in reality, my top speed isn't really all that important because, well, think about it. There's only a few tracks where you actually are going to get even close to your top speed. Tracks like Le Mans, which comes up every now and then, but you're not going to tune it for one track. You're going to tune it generally for a lot of tracks, and because this is just a beginner's guide. So I'm actually going to not use either of these upgrades because I feel a 5.6 is actually a pretty good handling rating. It's not the best, but it's decent, and I'm going to take it. Now, if you wanted to, you could do a drivetrain swap and make this a four-wheel drive. And even though your handling stats will be moderately the same, in reality, that actually is going to make your handling a lot better by making your exits from turns be much, much faster, not to mention the launch speed. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick to the regular rear-wheel drive with mid-engine because I find that for me personally, and obviously this is all going to be based on me, but for me personally, I can drive a mid-engine car with rear-wheel drive much better than I can for, say, a front-engine car with rear-wheel drive. Aside from that, normally I will go to four-wheel drive, but again, it's all preference, and you can go just as fast either way for the most part. Now, all that's left to do is make some small changes. I want to get the anti-roll bars in because it's just a moderate difference. Neither of the anti-roll bars will make or break your car, but it's just a nice thing to have to put on your car. And obviously I'm not taking cost into any of this. If you're on a budget, which I can't imagine a system where you really would be, maybe you should stay away from that. Now, engine upgrades. These are important, and I tend to do exhaust for no good reason whatsoever. I like having my car be louder. I like being able to hear it. There's really no good benefit. But one of the most important engine upgrades that you can do is a camshaft. And what you get from your camshaft is, there's a lot of real-life reasons why this happens, but it allows you to rev your engine for longer. You can see those two lines there, the torque line and the power line. They end at what looks to be about 7,500, more or less. It's really 7,200. But if I upgrade it, I can rev all the way to 8,000. And what that means is every single gear will be allowed to rev to a maximum of 8,000 before it hits the red bar and you start to hear it waver. And that's going to be a huge benefit because every gear will last longer. Acceleration is going to go up. You see it goes from an 8.2 to an 8.4. And not to mention my top speed is higher now because my engine can rev higher. So this is going to be a great benefit. Plus it gives me 59 horsepower, which is nice. So camshafts, generally speaking, one of the best engine upgrades you can do. Now you can see I'm at an A60, 660, so at this point I'm just kind of going to finish it off. I'm going to put in whatever upgrade I can to make my engine more powerful, while trying not to reduce my handling at all. And from there, I'm going to be able to, well, top it out at the A-Class. Obviously, I'm skipping the flywheel. The flywheel tends to be a small benefit that you can use to take it in when you only need a couple of points. But for the most part, I wonder if we're going to be able to make it all the way to the top. If worst comes to worst, I can add a supercharger. 81, yeah, let's see what a supercharger will add, because I want to be able to be as competitive as possible. So, let's do an engine swap. I can upgrade the engine entirely. Well, I'm going to do the engine swap because that puts me right at a 699. Plus, you can see my speed and acceleration all go up dramatically. So let's do that. I have no idea what engine to just put in there. Now I have the ability to aspiration swap, but I'm not even going to bother. Because I only need 1 point, which I can usually do with a flywheel. There you go. So now I'm an A700. And there's a couple of other things that you're going to want to do straight off the bat. And that is tune your car. Now, these are general tips that you can take before you even test drive anything at all. I'm going to look at the gearing. I see it's got a top speed of 219. Now that's really high. That's probably going to be changed. But I'm actually going to go straight over to the springs. and I'm going to reduce them to about 3 point, as low as they go. Any lower than 3.5, and it's not really a great idea. You're going to start bottoming out your car. But in this case, it's just enough, and I'm going to be able to do it. And the next step is you're going to want to test drive. And the first track you should bring it to is Le Mans, and here's why. You want the straightaway. Okay, so here I am at the straight. I actually smacked my back light out, so nice. But anyway, what you're going to learn here is exactly how your car delivers the power through all the gears. As you can see, I have 5 gears. So that's 5 gears that I'm going to try and take advantage of to the best that I can. And the only thing you have to do here is just drive all the way down. So let's give it a shot, and I'll show you how it works. So right off the bat, I noticed that my gears are very spread apart. In 2 gears, I already went to above 100 miles an hour. And, I mean, that's pretty fast. This car obviously has a lot of straight line potential. But again, we're trying to make a car that's going to win races, not necessarily just going to outrun everyone in a straight line. So, it's going to be really important. And now, already I noticed that when I go into my final gear, my car is very low in the rev range, and my maximum power, if you noticed in the chart earlier, is at the highest part of my is at the highest revs possible. So this power right here, that's getting me to 210, is actually kind of being wasted. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tune my setup. I'm going to go to gearing, and I'm going to work with the final drive. Again, I can't multiply, or rather multiply. I can't change any of the ratios in the individual gears. I can only change the final ratio. And I actually want to tune it so that maybe my top speed isn't so high. I don't ever really need to go 219 miles an hour. So I'm just going to work my acceleration up. And what you're going to find is that my top speed is going to lower. Now it's at 210, but I can still go lower. Now it's going to be at 200. So right here, I figure, is going to be a pretty much optimal setup. At 198, that's fast. It's very fast, but now it's going to get there much quicker, as you'll see as I turn around. So just give me a moment here. It'll upgrade. Now we're going to slow down. And as I turn back the other way, notice how much quicker it's going to accelerate this time. And you can already see, I mean, 3rd gear took me to the same place that 2nd gear would have last time, so obviously that's a big change. But the net effect is I'm going much faster now than I was before. And that's going to help me pull out of turns, and that's going to help me win races. So that's the only thing you need to do here. And I'm actually just going to quit out, and I'll cut this. So those are the basics to tuning your car. There is more to it. You're going to want to work with your spring stiffness, but this gets into more advanced stuff. For the most part, what you have now is a car that on base stats is fast, and on gear and on straight line speed is fast. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run it around, let's say Laguna Seca, against another car that I've tuned, and just see where the baseline stats have got me. So that's about it. And we're back, and we see that this Testarossa was able to get a time much faster than that 370Z. Granted, that 370Z was not tuned for this track. Neither was the Testarossa, but the point is, I haven't even gotten into the dampening, to the aero, to the braking, to the tire pressure. I haven't done all that things. All I did was make sure that my engine was getting all of its power, and that my upgrades made sense, and I was able to get a car that placed, well, 4,233, which out of 100 and however many thousand is pretty good. So, yeah, out of 380,000. So that's a pretty good time. So with that, now hopefully you know some stuff about tuning that you didn't know before. And as always, comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next commentary.